My name is Tane, and I was asked to talk about some of my experience during statehood or what led up to statehood. I was one of the fortunate ones that knew my history when I was a little boy. I hung around all my kupunas, and we would discuss many things. And one of it was the fact that statehood was a big question. As far as I'm concerned, I knew I was a subject of the Hawaiian kingdom, that I was not an American. I was born during the territory of Hawaii. And so I knew about our queen, our beloved princess, and some facts behind it. So growing up in school, they talked to us more about becoming first-class citizens. They also mentioned that it was taxation without representation. So back then, the governor was appointed to the islands. And if we became a state, we'd be just like the Haole Melikas, and would be able to vote for president and even one day become president. And of course, I was dead set against it because I knew I was a Hawaiian subject, and I wasn't about to give that up, especially knowing how racist they were. Because back then a lot of things were very racist. The Massie case was still very fresh in people's minds.
What was that about?
Well, Thalia Massie was whoring around. She had this boyfriend, and she would go to this bar down Ina Road. And so she was fooling around while her husband was away. When the husband returned, well, she had to call off her playing around with her boyfriend, and he got upset and beat her up. Either that or the husband found out and beat her up. So what happened was she was beaten up so badly she was hospitalized, and to save face, she blamed it on these four local guys. And then, well,
What were the nationalities of these four guys?
one was Hawaiian, one was Chinese, one was Japanese, and I think the other one was probably a mix. I'm not quite sure. I can't remember now. It's been so long. So what happened there was those boys got railroaded, and so the Chinese guy got captured by the white Navy men up Nu'uanu, and they were going to lynch him. And somehow the case kind of just fell apart because they didn't have enough evidence. Then Mrs. Fortescue was Thalia Massie's mother. She was also supposedly a cousin of Roosevelt. And they came over, she came over. So she, Thalia, her husband, and one of his friends captured a Hakuwelo, the Hawaiian guy, kidnapped him and took him up to their place in Manoa, the house in Manoa, and murdered him. And like they do with the blacks on the mainland back then, they would cut off his private parts and stick it in his mouth. And so after they killed him, they wrapped him up and put him in the car, and they went to go to dump his body. And along the way, somehow they got stopped by a police officer, and then his body was discovered in their trunk, and they were arrested. They sent Clarence Darrow to do the trial. They were found guilty, and the governor commuted their sentence to his office for 1 hour until they were able to be put onto the ship and sail back to the mainland. So that's how we knew about racism being rampant, and also American justice. You know, you're white, you're right. And that's what happened here in Hawaii, and then it became a little bit more pronounced. So that really escalated a lot of racism.
I remember horror stories about the Massie case, about the body hanging from the tree and the whole 9 yards, but I really didn't know what was behind it. Thank you very much.
So, of course, getting back to statehood, I told my parents I didn't want them voting, because I was 16 at the time. I didn't want them voting for statehood. I'd tell people, you know, and of course they'd laugh and think that I was silly. And at that time, you know, it was only one little voice from a boy. But I was adamant that I did not want to be an American, that I wanted the U.S. to leave and, you know, give us back our country. So, of course, I was really ticked off when they held the election. I questioned even the ballot at that time as a kid, because I says, where's the option for independence?
Now they're bringing
or Commonwealth. You know?
Now they're bringing that out, but they're claiming it's too late and it was just overlooked.
Well, studying it now, looking back now, and learning a little bit more about the laws, I found out that the whole process was irregular, and so it would naturally be null and void. There were a lot of Hawaiians that were barred from voting. Many Hawaiians chose not to vote. I spoke to a few people and verified that.
They said that the majority was all for statehood.
Well, the majority of those that voted, because about 36% of the eligible voters voted, and 95% of them were the ones that actually voted for statehood, and that encompassed the military dependents. At that time, there was a large influx of people from America, the United States, and all this was a violation of the laws of occupation. So they let all these foreigners vote. So, you know, as far as I'm concerned, the process, not putting down all the options and everything, makes it null and void. Of course, I know about annexation. Annexation, of course, was a resolution. The people had the Kui petitions. So that's why it's still the kingdom. It still exists under occupation.